So we have two mapping tools, and the mapping tool that we use in our releases is this tool, the mapping.ihsistotools.org. And this is what we use to map from SNOMED to other things. So here you can see this is SNOMED to ICD-10. And basically, if I just show you the map records, this allows me to see all the records that have been mapped. So again, I'll keep on choosing asthma, so we're in the same theme. But here you can see all the concepts related to asthma and what they've been mapped to. So, you know, asthma disturbing sleep, you know, J14.5.9 asthma, and you can see the information about all the maps that have been created. You know, there are 179 maps based on asthma, and I think if I go back, where are we? There's 122,000 map records from SNOMED to ICD-10. You can go. This is visible to be viewed by anybody. You can see the other maps we have. So we have ICDO, so ICPC. So this is really part of the primary care one, the ICPC2 standard. And here you can see where we've mapped expiratory wheezing, so wheezing, all these types of things. So again, it's a map to ICPC2. This is a tool that again is open source. It's not necessarily available to, we don't host it for members. We use this very much for our own maps. It can be run, but it's a fairly complicated tool to kind of get up and running. I think what we recommend with mapping is to understand what you want to map first. So the question really to you is, are you mapping from SNOMED to something else, or are you mapping from something else to SNOMED? And what is the something else? So the direction of the map is kind of is always important to understand about what maps you want to have. So I think that's one thing to consider. And so we have some tools for that. Unfortunately, I can't really give a demo of the Snap to SNOMED tool. That's one that's very much managed by our implementation team at the moment. I'm sure they'd be happy to give you a demo of that when necessary. This is our mapping tool. This is what we use. And this is what we use to produce those RF2 files, at the end of our release process. It's also it's used by the US as well. The US, and I think Norway, are running their own instance of this tool, so they do their own maps. So they use it as well. So it's used by some countries, but mapping is one of those. It's a very interesting activity in that it's quite it's quite manual. It involves quite a lot of work. And so we've been trying ways to see how can we automate it, can we use it. So one thing, for example, we've been looking at mapping from SNOMED CT to ICD-11 MMS, and starting at scratch, that's years of work. So we've been using some AI techniques and NLP to try and improve that, and we produced an automated map. It's like 160,000 map records that we're working through at the moment. So we're trying to see how we can use that and extend that for other maps as well. So we're trying to use new techniques, but I think it depends on the context of a map. So taking ICD as a good example, SNOMED to ICD is generally not a clinical pathway. It's a reporting pathway. So you record the clinical encounters and clinical information in SNOMED CT, but generally you're using ICD for reporting, for costs and so on. So if there's a slight mistake in the map, okay, it's inconvenient, but we're not going to be sending somebody to the morgue, which is good. But if there are other maps that are maybe more clinical pathways, then it gets very hard to automate that process because there's clinical safety issues. So we have the same thing when we go from something else to SNOMED. Because SNOMED's so large, we've got to make sure that those maps are correct. And sometimes they can be unsafe. And that's the reason why we're very careful about the automation of maps. And it's one of those things we have to do, but each map needs a little bit of thought about how you're going to do it and whether you automate it or whether you don't really.